Philadelphia finally freeing themselves from the KP regime wasn't the only move the Birds made today, as Howie went outside the building to make a signing that Saquon Barkley should love. Still, all eyes now shift to Nick Sirianni and the Eagles' next offensive coordinator, with a few big names reportedly already rising to the top. Also, Jalen Hurts said that has me feeling a little bit better about A.J. Brown, and Jalen Phillips really wants to return to Philadelphia. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. All Philadelphia can finally rejoice because the main problem, at least in all the fans' eyes this season, is officially gone. At least from the offensive coordinator position, because the details we'll get into behind Kevin Patullo's firing are actually a bit odd. More importantly, however, is the Birds' search for his replacement, and one name in particular is starting to rise to the top. But it's going to take a lot longer than all of us really want. Oh, and firing a coach wasn't the only move Howie made today. This one I absolutely love. First, though, it's your second chance to enter the Devontae Smith Immortals card courtesy of Jordan Spector, the one you see on your screen right now. I said yesterday, the most liked comment on my first two videos this week will be essentially the finalists, and I'll pick one of the two to go and win this bad boy on my next video. The top comment from yesterday's video has 256 likes. It's Wheezy saying, take a good long hard look at Nick Sirianni. I agree with that. We'll talk about that. So Wheezy, you're a finalist. But the second comment we chosen from down below in this video. So drop a like, leave a comment, and also drop some likes on other people's comments. The most liked comment on this video will also be a finalist. Now, of course, by now, you know, Philadelphia officially fired Offensive Coordinator Kevin Patullo late Tuesday afternoon, with Nick Sirianni, of all people, releasing the official statement saying, quote, I decided to make a change at Offensive Coordinator, adding later, quote, I have no doubt he will continue to have a successful coaching career. Ultimately, when we fall short of our goals, that responsibility lies on my shoulders. So yes, drop a like. Can we get 3,000 likes down below? Kevin Patullo is officially gone. Well, maybe not, though, because the details behind the firing are a little bit confusing. Jeff McClain noted after all this became official that, quote, Kevin Patullo will no longer be the Eagles' offensive coordinator, but that doesn't mean he has been fired. He could remain on staff, as I mentioned was a possibility on my podcast yesterday. He may also choose to leave the organization. That is to be determined. The Info Network's Mike Garofalo adding, quote, Patullo took heat as offensive coordinator this year, but he's been an integral part of the team's success in the Sirianni era, serving last season as assistant head coach. The fact he wasn't fired and could return shows the Eagles value him. Still some talks to be had later, though. And that's wild, but let me actually translate. Essentially what they are saying here is, if Kevin Patullo wants to come back, he can. However, that's going to be up to most likely the new offensive coordinator because he's going to have final say. He can bring KP back if he wants, but it is not guaranteed. Whatever happens, though, honestly, good riddance, at least from the offensive coordinator perspective, because whether it was fully his fault or not, Kevin Patullo took the 2024 offense that was red hot down the stretch and in the playoffs and pacified it into what really was a laughingstock around the league. And it was really all best summed up by Philadelphia's performance early in the wildcard game versus the 49ers, the fact they ran an insane 48 hitch routes on Sunday, in a game that perfectly put on display the disparity in OC scheming between a name like Kyle Shanahan and Kevin Patullo. And on top of all of that, behind the scenes, it sure sounds like Kevin Patullo was not taking the blame and actually trying to blame other people. At least that's what Richard Sherman said on Nick Foles' podcast a couple of days ago. Listen to this.
And, you know, Fitz is good friends with Kevin Patullo, so he reached out and he's like, people are just so hard on me, and it's not my fault, and they don't understand the inner workings. And it's like, Kevin, we get it, but when you're the offensive coordinator with great power comes great responsibility and great burden and accountability.
Also, I want to give a massive shout out to the sponsor of this video, Private Internet Access. If you're not familiar with a VPN, it stands for Virtual Private Network. Think of it like a secure private tunnel for your internet. Without it, you're basically on a public highway where anyone can see your data. But a VPN hides your connection from hackers and even your internet service provider. And I personally love PIA because it's easily the most transparent provider out there. They have over 30 million downloads and a strictly audited no-logs policy. And let me tell you, it is essential for protecting your passwords and stuff like your photos when you're on public Wi-Fi at coffee shops or in airports. And beyond just security, which obviously is very important, it is pretty darn great for us sports fans. You can bypass regional blackouts by changing your location to any of the 50 US states or 91 countries. You can even watch conference championships or even the big game, the one in February, for free using their servers on Australia for 7+ or New Zealand for TVNZ. And as you see on my screen right now, it takes just one click to hide your original IP address. And a single subscription covers unlimited devices all at once. You protect your phone, your laptop, literally the entire family. It's totally risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So check it out at piavpn.com/Thomas Mott or scan the QR code right over here on your screen. You'll get 83% off plus your first 4 months free. That's literally $2.03 per month, which is incredible. So check it out, protect your entire digital life, and also enjoy these streaming benefits as well. I don't know about you, but I got so tired during the regular season and really the past couple of days where former Eagle players, current Eagle players, coaches, media members around the league were trying to gaslight us into saying, it's not all Kevin Patullo's fault. There's got to be execution. We can't have all these penalties. And it's like, listen, I understand that Philadelphia did not execute. A.J. Brown dropped passes, false starts. That's all true. But I have eyes. You have eyes. I might not be an offensive genius. I watch the NFL, though. Philadelphia was running the most vanilla offense possible week after week after week. And they would tell us it was going to be fixed. And it never got fixed. And we all knew deep down it would cost us eventually. And sure enough, they didn't get the 2 seed because of it. And they got absolutely embarrassed late in that wild card game versus the 49ers. And the play calling that we all saw is to blame. Of course, this does now lead us to the fact that Philadelphia has a new challenge. They have to find a competent replacement. And if you want a master list, I'm going to link Anthony Daboll's Philly Special article this morning where he goes through literally 21 names. That's a lot that makes sense. But right now, I think 4 are ahead above the rest. First, of course, everyone says this in my comment section, Mike McDaniel, who fits the mold of an offensive genius, maybe not this year in Miami, but certainly in his past. My main question, though, is how is his relationship with Vic Fangio? Because remember, Mike hired Vic and then fired Vic 1 year later. They were together in Miami, but not for very long. I also think McDaniel and the other head coaching names on this list of 4 are going to get a lot of calls for head coaching positions. They might not even want an offensive coordinator job, so take it with a grain of salt, but it's going to be a very interesting process. Next is perhaps my favorite candidate. That's Kevin Stefanski, the former Browns head coach. I highly doubt, though, he's going to have to settle, as I just mentioned, for an OC job, because I see him as an offensive genius who just needs to get the heck out of Cleveland's shadow. Won, Coach of the Year twice in Cleveland and did technically win some games. He is certainly worth an interview. To me, this is the name that I want. Next, though, a lot of people are very interested in the Vic Fangio clone and former Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken, who has the running game experience. Obviously, Derrick Henry, they were fantastic, plus a track record with a mobile, explosive quarterback. And the big draw here is the Fangio comparison, a.k.a. is he really going to leave after one successful season to go be a head coach somewhere? Doesn't appear to be the case. Obviously, that could change, but that is very, very intriguing to make sure Jalen Hurts has some continuity with his offensive play caller. Because by now, you've heard the stat before, but Jalen Hurts will enter the 2026 season with the 11th different play caller in 11 straight seasons, dating back to his Alabama football days, which is, oh my gosh, unbelievable. Here's to hoping whoever they get is more in the Steichen and Kellen Moore mold instead of the KP and Brian Johnson. Which leads us actually to the last hot name, at least right now, that's definitely rising to the top, and that is former Giants head coach Brian Daboll. Big reason why, he was Jalen Hurts' offensive coordinator all those coordinators ago when they were both at Alabama under Nick Saban. Reportedly, they still have a great relationship, and while I think Brian Daboll is less likely to get a head coaching job compared to McDaniel or Stefanski, he also is probably going to get a lot of offers or at least a lot of interviews, but coming to Philadelphia for a year and then leaving, we wouldn't want him to, but he might, that could make a ton of sense. All of this, though, as I keep trying to hint at, comes with a grain of salt because Philadelphia is going to have to wait in line. There are 9 other teams in the National Football League right now who want head coaches, not just OCs, head coaches. And a lot of the guys that I just mentioned and the 21 others on the bonus list are probably going to get a ton of interviews. Those head coaching trees, really spots, have to be filled first before somebody decides, yeah, I'll take an OC job. So really, I would sit back and not expect anything to happen in the next couple of days, maybe the next couple of weeks. We'll cover it all here in the channel, but I want them to be thorough. I want them to search long and far and wide and find somebody that fits what Philadelphia wants to do and gets this passing attack and this quarterback back on track. However, I will say this. Don't discount the quality of the Birds OC job like some people are trying to do on Twitter saying, oh my gosh, there's dysfunction. They don't want this. We have 2 seasons of proof that if you are a competent offensive coordinator, you can get a Super Bowl berth really easily, maybe even a Super Bowl ring, and if you desire, although we won't like it, potentially a head coaching job 1 year later. This roster is plenty talented on both sides to explode once again in the new year, as long as it's under the right leadership. My hope, though, regardless of how long it takes or who Philadelphia wants, is that QB1 will actually be consulted because he's essentially about to have yet another brand new system and a brand new OC for like the 100th season in a row. It sure sounds like QB1 agrees with me, at least yesterday, where he mentioned that, yeah, his phone line's open. Give him a call if you want to discuss new OCs.
Do you want to have or do you expect to have in what happens this offseason?
I think overall my line is always open. And so, however involved or whatever level of inquiry I am, I definitely be available. Ultimately, put my focus on controlling the things that I can and giving my best. And, in the end, however you want to skin it, as I said, we didn't do enough. And when I say we, it always starts with I. It always starts with the man in the mirror and myself. And so I'm very critical on that. I think, in terms of things being inside my box and outside of my box, it's an innate thing to be able to figure it out. And, I figured things out many times before, and this time I didn't figure out enough to get us to the next round.
And so we'll see. We'll cover it here as it happens. I think it might take a little bit of time, but you never know. What I want you to do right now, though, is go down below, comment who your top offensive coordinator pick is in the comment section. I'm going to read them all and see where everybody's leaning. Now, KP wasn't the only move that Howie Roseman made today, as the Birds went first and signed a bunch of their internal practice squad members to reserve future contracts, which included Chance Campbell, Tariq Castro-Fields, Danny Gray, Gabe Hall, Brandon Johnson, Jake Majors, Holland Pierce, and Quez Watkins. However, they also actually went outside of the building and added former Chiefs flashy running back Carson Steele, and this one has me pretty excited. You probably remember the name, or maybe the face, the hair, more importantly here, from the former Chief running back who played in all 17 games for KC last year, and really at times flashed speed, power, very physical, and even some pretty impressive kick return abilities. I don't think he's going to be a primary running back in Philadelphia, though, and that's why I'm excited, because right now the Birds have Saquon, they have Tank, and Shipley signed through 2026. But Steele could be the Birds' future fullback, and that is pretty exciting. I mean, really, he fits the bill. He definitely has the size, the power, and we know how hard Philadelphia tried to turn Ben Van Sumeren into their lead-blocking fullback all training camp long until he sadly got injured on the first play in the Cowboy game. Whether he comes back or not, who knows? But I think Steele starts on the practice squad, gets into training camp, and maybe turns into a full-time fullback. And if you're Saquon Barkley, that sounds like a really, really good thing to me. Time, of course, will tell if Carson Steele even makes the roster, but I think this is Howie Roseman showing you his mindset, at least right now. Get rid of the offensive coordinator and then make sure they fix the running game, because truly, that's what turned them into Super Bowl champions in 2024. They ran the football very effectively, and if needing a fullback is a picture or a piece of that, I am all for it. I think Saquon Barkley 100% agrees. Now, moving on, the other big departure, or lack thereof, potentially is going to be A.J. Brown. And I talked about this yesterday. I mentioned that I think A.J. Brown is going to go ahead and be traded. However, when you actually dive into the numbers, I think it's going to be a lot more difficult. Not impossible, but as we'll see, you got to trade him, and it's going to take a long time. For example, Philadelphia were to say cut A.J. Brown tomorrow. Never going to happen, but they would take on an impossible dead cap number of $72.5 million for the 2026 season. If they were to trade him tomorrow, they would take on $27 million of dead cap immediately. However, if they trade him after June 1st, the 27 becomes $16 million in 2026. However, it's back up to $27 million in 2027, which obviously is a lot. But technically, if you're wondering how much is Philadelphia paying in dead cap money to, say, Bryce Huff right now, it's $16 million. So if they want to get rid of A.J. Brown, they're going to eat a ton of money. It'll be about $16 million this year, $27 next year, and it will have to happen after June 1st, which means we're going to have a long offseason of will A.J. Brown stay? Will A.J. Brown go? Who honestly knows? However, Jalen Hurts was asked about it yesterday, and in a quick little clip here, he did seem to give, a positive reaction to his and A.J. Brown's relationship.
AJ and I have talked. We're in a great place.
Last one.
I know y'all can talk to him and ask.
My guess right now is that A.J. Brown wants to leave. I think the body language this season, his reaction to, the offensive coordinator, Kevin Patullo this season, it's very clear. If he had his choice, he would leave. He'd probably want to be a New England Patriot or whatever. However, with this contract situation, I think after he settles down a little bit here, he'll talk to the Eagles front office and they'll have an open and honest conversation saying, it's hard to trade you. We will see. However, if they can get the right offensive coordinator who A.J. Brown likes, there's a very real possibility that number 11 really just stays in Philadelphia because, again, $16 million in dead cap money, 27 the next year, that's really, really hard to go ahead and swallow, even if you don't want him here in Philadelphia. Naturally, though, Philadelphia doesn't just have the A.J. Brown situation to figure out. They have actual free agents coming up here over the next, 2 months, getting ready for March. And I'll have a full breakdown on who will stay and who will go in the future. Plenty of videos happening in the next couple of days and weeks. But I do think priority number one right now in terms of free agents is likely going to be Jalen Phillips. Because A, he fits Fangio's scheme. B, Fangio absolutely loves him. C, he's still very young. And D, yesterday he was asked and sure sounds like he wants to stay in Philadelphia.
I want to be on a competitive team and in an environment where, I'm
love the guys I'm around and love the organization I'm playing for. I feel that here. So, we'll see.
Philadelphia loves edge rushers. They need another edge rusher, whether Phillips stays or goes. My guess is right now, if they don't go big game hunting for a Myles Garrett or a Max Crosby, the simple answer is re-sign Jalen Phillips, draft somebody else in the 2026 NFL draft, and hope that Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, Phillips, and a rookie can be the edge rushers that you need to get a little bit more pressure than they did in the wildcard game versus Brock Purdy. Now, free agents aside, quickly here, one of the worst kept secrets on the Birds team in 2025 was the health, or I guess lack thereof, of the offensive line. So obviously, Lane Johnson, he missed 8 games in total. That was a huge loss, which, by the way, we still don't know why Philadelphia never placed him on IR and why he practiced all last week and didn't come back, but whatever, we might never know. We do know, however, that Landon Dickerson, for example, was truly never healthy, and I think that played a massive role in his extremely regressed play in 2025. And then, yesterday, after Sunday's loss, he all but confirmed that offseason surgery is probably in his future, and Eagle fans don't fully realize just how banged up he actually was.
It does bother me. Everybody shares blame, but everybody's going to point to somebody. So it's hard for people on the outside that don't understand what goes on in the details of everything. So I think he handled the criticism well, didn't let it get to him, and that's all he can do.
What were you playing through this year?
A lot.
When you say you don't want to let anyone down, is that more of just a you personal thing, or do you think that's like a teamwork culture?
If you're in team sports, you understand. You don't want to let the guys down beside you because you've been through a lot.
Those guys, Landon, he spoke on it, so I'll speak on it. He's banged up. I don't look at it like, that's the reason why we weren't successful. I look at it more as I know how important he is for our team and for our offense when he's on the field, no matter if he's 100% or he's 60%. There's a lot of things that he does that is not seen to make it out for our offense. So more for me, I look at it as more just appreciation of having the will and the fight to go out there, knowing that you might not be at your best, but go out there and give your all for your teammates.
That, of course, isn't an actual excuse because everybody's banged up at this point in the 2025 season or really any season in the NFL. But I do really think that Landon Dickerson didn't just go from a Pro Bowl left guard to a garbage left guard on accident. Didn't just happen naturally. He probably has some sort of lower body injury that might need a minor surgery the next couple of months to go ahead and clean up. What I do know, however, though, is that if Philadelphia's offensive line can get back to where it was in 2024, this offense, regardless of who the offensive coordinator is, can dramatically get better. And it sure sounds like, according to Jordan Mailata, it wasn't just Landon Dickerson, but multiple Eagle offensive linemen were pretty banged up basically the entire year.
I would love to say yes. 4 or 5 guys. We're healthy. We're having a different conversation, but this is football. We can't control the things that happen. We can try all we can do is control what we can, as corny as that is, but I can't sit here and honestly tell you, we're having a different conversation if we're all healthy. It's week 19, week 18, week 19? Week 19?
Yeah.
No one's 100% in week 19, unless you're coming from, you get hurt. But even if you get hurt early in the season, you're coming back, you're not 100%. No one's 100%, so...
Lastly, I do want to come back to Nick Sirianni here for a second because a lot of my comments on yesterday's video, as I talked about, were saying that Philadelphia should move on from Nick Sirianni. And I mentioned it in my video as well. If I had the choice today, I would go ahead and fire Nick Sirianni. However, it's very clear as of January 13th, Tuesday, that he's coming back in 2026, barring some insane change of heart by the Eagles front office, or maybe if they love, say, John Harbaugh or Kevin Stefanski and have some sort of under-the-table deal where they swap Nick Sirianni for one of them. Very unlikely, but that's the only real scenario I see where somebody else is coaching the Birds. But I think the KP news of demotion instead of firing is probably your best example that they're not going to fire Nick Sirianni because they would fire just everybody, including coordinators, if they were going to let him go. Plus, we're 2 days in. They need to get on the search as soon as possible. Again, it's very obvious Nick Sirianni is coming back. And while I get it, he just won a Super Bowl. He's got all these wins, playoff appearances. I do think that they got to take a real long, hard look at what Nick Sirianni does well, essentially, does poorly, and make sure that the coaching staff they put around him is not a bunch of newbies who don't know what they're doing, but people who can keep Nick Sirianni in check and make sure that his offense and defenses are performing to their highest level. And it's sad that that's the truth, because you would like your head coach to be, an offensive genius who doesn't need some sort of experienced offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator to be successful. But as we've seen 2 seasons now, with inexperienced OC and DCs, they're at best a wild card team that gets bounced by a lot in the first round. But with experienced OC and DC, they can go to the Super Bowl. They did that twice. And so, I don't know. I mean, I'm indifferent on Nick Sirianni. I think he's fine. I think the antics and everything get kind of tiring. And the fact that he couldn't steer the ship in the right direction this season is also a huge indictment. But for people wondering, it does not seem like Nick Sirianni is going anywhere. He will be the coach in 2026, barring what I would say would be an absolute crazy nuke dropped out of nowhere. And I just don't foresee that happening. Now, of course, plenty more stuff happening, really, next couple of days, hours, weeks, who knows? I think the search for offensive coordinator will take a long time, but it might not. They might already have a guy in mind. Daboll could sign tomorrow or Friday or Monday. We'll cover it all here in the channel, and that's the excitement of the offseason in Philadelphia, because it's never dull. There's always something going on. I'll cover it here, and I appreciate you guys continuing to watch. Drop the like, drop the hypes, comments, and of course, we'll do plenty of giveaways as well. I'm Thomas Mott. I'm happy that it happened and excited for the future now. Honestly, this has been the Thomas Mott Show.